So you want to build an action and then you want to submit it into our open source. We're really excited to hear that, and this video is going to help you walk through the process. So when I think about building an action, generally I've already got an idea of what I want to build and for what connector I want to do the action for. So in this example, I'm going to do an AWS connector, or I'm going to use the AWS connector to get a service quota for a service. All right. The way we're going to do that is we're going to take an existing AWS action and then we're going to modify it to make it do what we want to do. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to search for, right, and I'm going to drag this in. And so this is an AWS action, and we're going to change it to what we want to do. And so we're going to change this up here, and we're going to call this, we can rename it, right? Because I'm doing this for the video. Your credential is just the credentials, right? And it's AWS, so it has to be an AWS credential. This has nothing to do with creating it, but if we wanted to run it, we have to see that it works. And if we look at the code here, we can see that there's one required entry, and that's the region. So we can just put a value in here just to make sure, so it runs. And then you hit apply down here, and we can run it and just make sure this is going to get EC2 instances or something like that, right? So this is a list of all the instances. Okay, so let's look at the code. I've got some comments here. We've, importing all of our libraries here. We've got a printer. We've got the definition of our action that we want to do. And then we have some task stuff down here. And if you look down here, here are the credentials. And this we don't need to save this when we export this. It's not going to be included because this is specifically for me. This is my connection stuff and nobody else needs it. And it won't work for anyone else. You can see the input parameters. We have region. We can have an output. And it says print the output. That's just to print it down here. We can define an output. So if we do that, we can say, we're going to call it my output. We can apply that. And what we'll see here is now it's going to configure that the output name is called my output. So that means that the output of this is now assigned to the variable my output. We can add more inputs. Maybe we need to have a service code. So I want to add another input here. So what we can do is we click this button here. We can add an input, add the input, and we're going to call it the service code. It's going to be a string. You can define it if it's going to be a list or if it's going to be a Boolean or a dictionary or whatever. In this case, it's a string. We can give it a default value of EC2. So I've entered a description service code for quotas at AWS, and I create that. If we look, it's now showing up as optional. This will be fixed, and we will be able to choose whether it's required or optional. I will show you how to fix that at the end here. We will apply this now. And now you can see that we have a service code. For this to work on our module, we need to now add service code here. So the handle, this is login information. So that needs to remain. That's how we connect with our credential to AWS. We're going to keep the region there, and then let's add the service code. And we want to call it a string. Okay. And then basically all of this code is code that worked for getting EC2 instances. We're not doing that anymore, so we're going to delete that out. And so we need to put in our custom code there, which I have already written. So what this is doing is the service quota client is going to go get the service quotas from Amazon with the region, which we already have. Then we're going to paginate with the list service quotas, where the service code is equal to our variable here. The service code is equal to EC2. And we're going to paginate where we can get 100 things. And then it will return res paginate, which is the response. It's going to list all of the services. The printer up here is just going to return whatever the output is here with the term instances. So maybe we just want to change this to quotas. And now we should be able to run this. And what we get here is the quotas, and it's listing all the quotas for EC2 as a list. And you can see like this first one is how many of these running whatever hosts, and the value is 2. All right, so now we have a running action. We've created a new action, and what we want to do is we want to save it so that we can then reuse it, so we can share it with the rest of the team. So if we come here, we can now save this. So you'll notice I didn't change the name of the definition of the function here, and the reason I didn't do that is we're going to do that right here. We're going to say the output here was a list, and we're going to change the name of this to AWS create action video, and it's going to get changed automatically. And I have to put a 1 here, and then test go. And if you look, it changed the name of the definition, it changed the name of the printer, and down here, where it was down here, it also changed. So we don't have to change the name of the function because it gets changed automatically when you save it. And now if I come to the Finder, this is my root directory on my Mac. You don't see the unSkript folder, but if I hit Command-Shift#, all of the hidden folders start appearing. And you can see this .unscript. And then we're going to come into Custom, Contributes, unSkript, Legos. And you can see here's the create action video. And there's a JSON file that's been created and a .py file that has been created. And we're now ready to go. There's a couple things we need to do here. If we open this up, so I've opened up the Python file. And if we remember, the service code was listed as optional. We don't want it to be optional. We just want it to be a string. So if we just take out the optional here, now we've made the service code required. And so now that will make it better, and that it won't be optional. And so now if we take this directory, we add a readme file, it's now ready to be submitted as a pull request for the Awesome-CloudOps-Automation repository. So in this video, we've taken an existing AWS action, we renamed it, we changed the credentials, and then we rewrote the code and saved it so that it can be uploaded as a PR, Awesome Runbooks GitHub repository.